Story seekers, let's dive into Potoru, a village where the dark doesn't scare anyone. How could it, right? Every night, lanterns light up outside the huts, casting a cozy orange and gold glow across the village. Each lantern, they believed, held the spirit of an ancestor, a silent guardian watching over their family. The light was more than just a convenience. It was a promise of safety, connection, and remembrance of what truly matters. But one year, on the very last night of October, something went terribly wrong. The lanterns went dark. All of them at once. One moment, the village was bathed in the familiar, comforting glow. The next, it was plunged into a thick, suffocating blackness. There was no gust of wind to blame, no sound of mischievous footsteps scurrying away into the night. Just silence. A profound, heavy silence that was broken only by the faint, chilling smell of cold lamp oil hanging in the air. Whispers of a prank floated through the dark. Was someone just messing around? A silly joke for the season, maybe. But then, the sky itself seemed to protest. Thunder crashed overhead, and a flash of lightning lit up the scared faces of the villagers for just a moment. Even the dogs, usually so quick to bark at any disturbance, were cowering in silence. The fear was no longer a whisper. It was a palpable presence. And from that presence, from the deepest shadows at the edge of the village, a figure emerged. He was a man no one recognized, a stranger whose very stillness was unsettling. His eyes glowed with an eerie light, like captive fireflies dancing in the dark. In his hands, he cradled a small, intricately carved mask made from polished black wood. His voice was a gentle whisper, like leaves rustling on the ground. The ancestors are restless. Tonight, the veil is thin. The elders, the wisest folks in the community, quickly gathered at the chief's hut. The only light came from the dying embers of the central fire, casting long, dancing shadows on their worried faces. Old Mama Yatu, a woman whose eyes had seen nearly 100 seasons, leaned forward, her voice a fragile whisper. When the light fades, she rasped, the forgotten ones walk. Someone else murmured that this night, this last night of October, was what outsiders called Halloween. But to their people, it had another name. A name spoken only in hushed tones. The crossing night. The foreign word, Halloween, felt strange and clumsy on his tongue. The night when spirits cross over, one of the younger elders asked, his voice trembling slightly. The night when the living and the spirits met, like two quiet waves coming together in the dark ocean. But we've never celebrated anything like this in Potoru, the chief said. His voice steady, grounding everyone in tradition. Our lanterns have always protected us, but they weren't protecting them now. No one knew why the lanterns had died. The mystery fueled their growing panic. Some whispered of a curse, a dark magic laid upon the village. Others speculated that a selfish soul had stolen the light, hoarding it for themselves. The air was thick with tension and fear. Then, the strange man with firefly eyes spoke softly, cutting through the chatter. If the lanterns do not burn again before the stroke of midnight, he announced, his words landing like stones, the ancestors will claim a soul to guide them in the darkness. A collective gasp swept through the gathered villagers. The elders, who had faced droughts and floods, lions and leopards, now trembled with a fear they had never known. The odd guy vanished, and a bold voice pierced the scared crowd. It belonged to a boy named Hinda. He was just 15 Harmattan seasons old, but known throughout Potoru for his insatiable curiosity and a tongue as sharp as a freshly honed blade. He pushed his way through the adults, his young face set with determination, and stood before the trembling elders. If no one else will bring the light back, he said, his voice unwavering, then I will. A chorus of protests erupted. "You are just a boy. It's too dangerous. Stay here where it's safe." But Hinda's mind was made up. He saw not just danger, but an adventure, a chance to prove himself, a duty to his people. He felt a pull he couldn't explain. He turned away from the crowd, clutching a small gourd lamp his mum had carved for him years ago, right before she passed on. With a steady hand, he struck a flint and lit the wick. The flame caught, small and fragile at first, but it held. It glowed faintly, a single point of courage in the overwhelming dark, flickering softly like a tiny, resilient heartbeat. To Hinda, it felt like a guiding touch from his mother's spirit. With the lamp held high, he turned away from the village and stepped into the ancient forest, where the ancestors were said to rest. The deeper he went, the heavier the air got, and the night sounds got louder. The hooting of an owl sounded like a mournful warning. The rustle of leaves sounded like whispers just beyond his hearing. But Hinda did not falter. He kept his eyes on the small, flickering light in his hand and walked on. Finally, he reached the heart of the forest. Before him stood a colossal, ancient tree, so old its gnarled roots rose from the earth like the sleeping faces of giants. As he approached, a soft voice seemed to emanate from the tree itself, a voice that was both ancient and gentle. "Why do you disturb our rest, child?" Hinda, his heart pounding, respectfully knelt on the damp earth. He held up his gourd lamp. "The lanterns in my village have gone dark," he explained, his voice clear despite his fear. "My people are afraid. Please, great spirits, show me how to bring the light back." For a long moment there was only silence. Then, from the shadows beside the great tree, a figure stepped into the faint light of his lamp. It was a spirit woman, dressed in what looked like ancient, tattered rags. But her eyes were not of this world. They glowed with a magnificent, molten gold fire. As she drew closer, Hinda gasped. He recognized the face from the stories his grandmother used to tell. It was his great-grandmother, the first and greatest weaver of Potoru, a spirit who had been angered long ago when the village, in a time of plenty, had grown complacent and failed to properly honor her memory. "The lanterns did not die," she said, her voice a melody of wind and memory. "Your people forgot. You forgot to remember." She looked at Hinda, her golden eyes softening. "Light is not a thing to be owned. It is a thing to be shared, a story to be told." She lifted a hand, her long, ethereal fingers unfurling, and from her open palm, hundreds of tiny, brilliant sparks erupted, floating upwards like a swarm of golden fireflies. They danced in the air, swirling around Hinda, bathing him in their warm, gentle light. They were beautiful, and they were alive. The sparks seemed to know the way. They followed Hinda as he turned and hurried back towards his village. As he broke through the tree line, a miracle began to unfold. The first spark drifted towards the nearest hut and touched the wick of a darkened lantern. It lit up in an instant, one after another. Sparks flowed through the village, lighting up every gourd lantern in sight. The village was once again bathed in a brilliant, joyful glow, brighter than anyone had ever seen it before. People poured from their huts, their faces streaked with tears. Cries of fear turned to shouts of joy. They laughed, they embraced, they knelt on the ground, overwhelmed with relief and gratitude. And, for just a fleeting moment, if you looked closely at the edge of the forest, you could see the faint outline of the spirit woman, a gentle smile on her lips before she faded back into the morning mist. From that night on, the last night of October was never the same in Potoru. On the crossing night, which some still called Halloween, they didn't just hang their lanterns. They celebrated them, they hung them early, lit great bonfires that leaped towards the stars, and gathered around to tell stories. They whispered the names of those they lost, filled with love and gratitude, making sure their memories shone as bright as the flames. They say the light remembers. If you were to walk through the village of Potoru on that special night, you would hear the sound of children laughing, free from fear. You'd catch those little golden sparks floating in the air, as if the ancestors themselves were there, dancing among the living, keeping the lights and the memories alive. Because light is not just what we see, it's what we remember. And every memory, when shared, is a flame that can never, ever die. The Halloween night isn't just about fear or things that go bump in the night. It's about remembrance. It teaches us that the past never truly leaves us. It only waits, patiently, in the quiet dark, to be remembered. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey to Potoru. If you loved this story, smash that like button and hit subscribe for more amazing tales from all over the world. The drum of storytelling must never stay silent. Until next time, keep your light shining.